Is Millie still a problem?
It's complicated.
So if you've been following my channel for Helluva Boss content, then you've probably seen my somewhat infamous video about Millie. Right after the semi-official end of Season 1, I expressed my opinion on how the show was severely underutilizing Millie as a character, that the perfection of the M&Ms was coming at the expense of the show just not giving her enough to do. I never thought that she was a bad character, but at the same time it was painfully obvious that out of the entire cast, she was one being given the least amount of focus. Forever trapped as her husband's +1, giving him pep talks so that he can go do his own thing, but whenever it was her turn, it always ended up being couple shit. This wasn't a deal breaker, but it was a bit annoying, especially since literally every other main character and their kids got to be the focus of an episode. Meanwhile, Millie was getting scraps. And it was very early in the series, and I always figured that she would get her own episode eventually. And after 3 years, we finally were blessed with Unhappy Campers, where Millie finally got to take center stage. So after all that waiting, did Unhappy Campers finally flesh out Millie as a character and make her more than just Moxie's wife? Did Unhappy Campers fix the Millie problem? I mean, it kinda did. So basically my beef with how the show handled Millie was always on how it used her. As a character, she was fine. She was never the most captivating or interesting person in the room, but she always had potential. All of which, though, was kinda muted by her role in the story, where she really just put the support in supporting cast, in spite of the fact that she was a main character. Unless the names involved were Blitz and Stolas, the show really wasn't trying too hard to try and explain your relationship status. We'd get glimpses of the other characters interacting, like how Millie dehumanized Luna constantly.
Moxie, stop shaking! You're gonna shoot our only hail ham. Wow, I feel so loved here.
Do we know why? No, but she does it. Kinda like how Luna calls Moxie fat and he has been spiraling ever since. Though at least with Luna, we know that she's someone with deep personal issues. She puts on an apathetic front and is mean to pretend that she doesn't care, even though inside she is terrified. Millie's microaggressions though? Nothing. Maybe it's because Luna bullies Moxie and is rude?
Damn, you're pretty agile for an old lady. I'm like 5 years older than you.
We don't really know. The show hasn't told us, so that is just a theory. And part of the reason that we don't know, and the reason that Millie gets so little, is Blitz. Blitz is the main character and everyone else has got to deal with it. How important you are to him and his backstory determines how much screen time you are gonna get. From old enemies and exes making appearances to his constant arguing with Moxie over him just existing, this unfortunately creates a bit of a narrative blind spot for Millie. As while Millie and Blitz do have a lot of potential to explore, her ability to just roll with his insanity makes it so we don't get any opportunities to really explore how they feel about each other. As we know, Blitz fantasizes about hooking up with the M&Ms, yet that's more about his jealousy of their happy relationship than an explanation for just how close the two of them actually are. We know she texts Blitz about ball gags for Moxie, so they are very casual and open with each other, but we haven't gotten an exact vibe yet. We don't know if this is close coworkers, friends, or does she just accept Blitz as he is and knows that he's harmless, so she doesn't sweat it whenever he breaks into their house. We just don't really know, as these two very rarely get to communicate with each other in a meaningful way. Blitz gives orders, Millie carries them out, and then he goes back to arguing with Moxie, as Moxie and Blitz always take priority. Moxie is the straight man to Blitz's madness. He's the one calling out his BS, while also being uplifted by Blitz as Moxie truly does care what he thinks of him. They are a great duo. But because the show has so much fun pairing Blitz up with him, or Stolas, or Luna's drama, Millie and Blitz just keep things chill, leaving her on the sidelines as her hubby and boss have their little spats, causing her only real involvement in the story to come in two forms: action scenes and Moxie stories. Now, when it comes to the action, Millie is a tiny murder machine. She has some truly spectacular kills. This woman goes ape shit if Moxie's in danger, but her combat skills have always felt like a consolation prize rather than an actual achievement. Yes, she kills things good, but newsflash, so does everybody. The action scenes in Helluva Boss are always fun, these climaxes are great, but it's never the big takeaway from an episode. People love it, but the things that they actually talk about after the end are the comedy and character moments. The M&Ms beat Stryker, but the things that weren't complaints that people talked about was Blitz seeing Stolas. The action in Helluva Boss is pure visceral spectacle. The animation quality is insane and they are beautifully choreographed, but they go so quickly that they kind of just become white noise after a while. Where you remember that they happened, you love it, but you remember the jokes in between more than the actual moves that happened, rendering Millie's role as an action star to not be as memorable or impressive as they would be if she was in something like Demon Slayer, where strength in how someone fights is a big selling point for the series. It is the thing we compare people by and judge their value on. Meanwhile, here in Helluva Boss, the action scenes feel more like a bonus than anything else. Not helping the matter is that Millie kinda wins and loses as the plot demands. One moment, she's able to massacre an entire mob wedding, gut a monster fish, and kill a woman with her thighs. But then, all of a sudden, she gets one-shotted by a hillbilly with a bottle. I get that she's a glass cannon, deals lots of damage but can't take many hits. But some of the ways that she loses are just crazy after seeing all the feats she's done, making her power level feel incredibly inconsistent. Not helping this is how the openly transparent ways the stories try to keep her out of the story only make everything else even more suspect. So when it comes to focus or just give her a chance to really stand out, all we have left was her relationship with Moxie, as all their other ones were very muted. Moxie is the show's second main character in Season 1. Season 2 has bumped him down to number 3, but out of the first 7 episodes, he was the main focus in 3 of them. Moxie was given the chance to be his own character and to have his own struggles, while everything that happened to Millie looped back to being about Moxie. If she went sicko mode on Stryker, it was to save Moxie. If she knocked some guy out who was talking shit, it was to let Moxie sing. Even the episode where we get to see Millie's parents centers around Moxie getting insecure and not feeling worthy, with that desire then devolving into a pissing match with Stryker, with the story then having to physically throw Millie into a bear trap to write her out of the climax. After which, Moxie's the one who tells Millie's parents to get off her back, completing his growth in the episode, while we are left with way less information about Millie other than her family is country tough, she has always been killing people, and is shit at hiding bodies. When it comes to being the focus of the story, Moxie was allowed to have his own moments, but Millie's were always turned into couple shit. And now, in a vacuum, episodes like Harvest Moon and X's and O's are fine. We may be at Millie's hometown and Chaz may have dated the both of them, but her role in these stories isn't a bad one. These episodes are focusing on Moxie's own growth and struggles, with Millie just being his rock and having her own kick-ass moments where she destroys everybody. She may not be the focus, but she is important and critical to the plot. However, the problem becomes when you realize that every other character in the main cast has had a chance to be the focus of an episode, except for her. This leads to all these episodes that are fine in their own right, just feel a little annoying in hindsight, as all of these are opportunities to explore Millie's character that just slip away and go to someone else. Her relationships with the rest of the cast are underdeveloped. She doesn't really have her own personal goals or struggles. She doesn't even have a losing excuse of just not being there, leaving Millie to be the odd one out of the entire cast. She still has a personality, being the sweet and professional member of the cast who is able to mostly deal with everyone else's bullshit. But when it comes to identifiable personality traits, she is kind of lacking. Moxie is the team bitch and an insecure theater kid. Luna got to be the apathetic teen who secretly loved her dad but hid it behind snark. Blitz is a bundle of issues masquerading as a person with a lingering mystery about his past and an increasingly complex relationship with Stolas. Everyone else has something that truly made them stand out on their own. It made them easily identifiable. Millie, on the other hand, was saddled by having all of her stories, all of her moments revolve around Moxie. Her compassion, her hint of being done with his shit, her violent streak, her ability to take everything in stride rendered her the least explored character in the show, especially if you account for screen time, as we never got the chance to really see her be her own person. That is, until Unhappy Campers. Kinda. So just gonna rip this band-aid right off. My bitches, my bros, my non-binary hoes. This isn't a Millie episode. Unhappy Campers is still very much a Moxie episode. The story primarily revolves on Moxie's psyche unraveling as he obsesses over how his wife is more popular than him, devolving into a petty little bitch who lashes out at her for having fun, while he fails to figure out who the murderer is, after Millie spotted him in the first 20 seconds. The episode ends with Moxie realizing how much of a dick he had been, apologizes for his actions, and learning to get over himself. Afterwards, he leaves to go kill a teenager. Meanwhile, Millie is off performing for her new fans. Moxie is the one who grows and changes in this episode, and that is okay, As while Moxie is still the focus and being the worst, we are finally given an opportunity to explore Millie as her own character. After all this time, Millie finally got her own solo song after being sung to by Moxie for a season and having one line in a duet we didn't see.
Nothing special, I'll tell you it's true.
With the lyrics revealing to us how she doesn't feel special juxtaposed with the insane skills that she has, showing how in spite of her badass status, she's not really used to having this kind of adoration or praise, feeling relatively normal in the grand scheme of things, implying that she doesn't think her skill set is that unique, which makes sense given how she was raised in Wrath, and her father already looked down on Moxie for using guns, implying that you're only really strong if you choose to do it close up with your bare hands. This would feed into Millie's extreme confidence with melee weapons, while also creating interesting scruple for her character. As for all of Moxie's praise, his love songs, part of her is still not used to thinking of herself as special, or singing in front of other people. All this attention though still creates conflict with Moxie, as his insecurities force her to compromise on what she wants to do to make him happy, which is perfect. You see, what this episode does really well is that it recontextualizes a lot of Millie's actions throughout the series, where before we kind of just took for granted how Millie was always being the supportive one, how she gave Moxie this unconditional love with only the occasional hint of annoyance, like that time he got jumped by Stryker and only realized later that he had a fucking gun. Here though, we discover that Millie, this fountain of understanding, does have her limits, where previously these two were the perfect couple where they always loved and supported one another. Unhappy Campers makes it very clear that being supportive is its own struggle, that Moxie, for how wonderful he can be, is still a lot to deal with from time to time. With Millie at times, feeling like she needs to sacrifice her own needs to support him, and it not really feeling like it's appreciated, turning the supportive wife trope that she was playing into something a lot more nuanced. As she still is doing that, but that little peek behind the mask shows us that it's not always so easy. It gives Millie depth, it gives Millie her own desires and struggles. It points out how Millie isn't just giving Moxie the attention he needs or just letting him go do his own thing. Millie is making a sacrifice, where she doesn't like to see him unhappy, she knows how insecure he is, and she lets him take the lead because of it, because she knows how much this shit means to him. While she's okay goofing off as she's already content that they can go figure it out later, it is very much a conscious choice, and there is a trade-off to that, as she's done it so often that Moxie has started to take it for granted and forgets that it's even happening, that she is sacrificing, and there's just a little bit of resentment to it. What this episode does is take the major problems people had with her character and establishes them as being issues that she actually has to deal with. Her hyper-focus on Moxie, him always taking priority, and her always having her shit together and helping people with their own problems, leaves her sometimes feeling like she's less than her traumatized co-workers. Rather than feel like an underutilized or ignored character, this episode takes those struggles and makes them part of her character, something that she and Moxie have to struggle and work through to change. It's not just passively ignoring her, it knows what's going on, and now it can work to deepen her character. The M&Ms are meant to be recently married, so the two of them are still learning how to make things work, even as they are in that honeymoon phase where everything's just so perfect and great. So for them to be finding things where they aren't on the same page is a good thing. Like Millie is being forced to be Moxie's emotional support, as he just keeps falling apart constantly. And this isn't just, oh, poor whoopee Moxie. His low self-esteem is a drag on their relationship, and it needs to be addressed. As after a certain point, she stops being his wife and starts acting more like his mother, and they both need to work on it. This episode is more about them and Moxie than it is her. But while it's not the pure Millie episode I've been craving, I think it is a step in the right direction, creating a good baseline that they can go on to explore later, with Millie being able to go do her own thing without having to be saddled with Moxie. Millie as a character has never been terrible. She doesn't need to be traumatized to be interesting. She is fine being the well-adjusted, murderous person that she is. But what the show is lacking is opportunities to explore Millie as a character in ways that don't relate to her husband. This episode is a great start, but we need more. We need to get a better understanding of her likes and dislikes. Does her temper only flare up occasionally, or is this something that she's always had trouble with, and her having to control it is the reason that she's so good at keeping her cool unless things get crazy and it all comes flooding out at once? Millie, like all the other Helluva Boss characters, are a goldmine for development and hijinks, so giving her the chance to stay on her own would allow us to better understand and appreciate her with or without Moxie. Give her some love on her own, and then the show can have them go back to being couple goals. I want to know more about her as a person, what makes her tick, not just facts about her life. There is so much untapped potential here, and I am dying to see what the full Millie episode will be like. Praying it's nothing stupid like she's pregnant or feels unworthy of Moxie's love, as these two are still couple goals. I just think that Millie, like Luna, would be so much fun if given the time to do their own thing.
Looks like you did it.
No, you did it.
Alright, that's my video. Like, share, and subscribe. Go. Let me know what you all thought of Millie, what you thought of this season so far. I've been mostly enjoying it. Some problems, some issues. We'll see how it pans out.